Hi there, and welcome to yet another episode in Soundpaint. And today we're going to go deep into our pop volume 104, also called Justin. Think of Justin as a juvenile, justified kind of Justin. We spent 2.5 years studying top 40 music, that sort of unique style that's been rising up in top 40 for the last almost decade now, where we're seeing influences from R&B, from hip-hop and traditional pop. And just one last note before we get into it. We spent an enormous time building these production kits here. You may think of traditional single-shot samples or loops just as a bass drum, a hi-hat, a snare drum, and a clap. We have all that in here. There's 5 different kits spread across the keyboard, 1 octave each. But what sets this library apart is that we're using the morphing technology inside of Soundpaint. So when I play a snare, I have 127 different variations of that snare. Think of it almost as an acoustic drum kit or very analog technology that goes for everything we're playing here. So when you play a hi-hat, you get natural variations and near infinite amount of round robin as well. And the kits are very expressive that way. Let me just show you right here, for example. So for example, when I'm playing the hi-hat now, I can really express myself like I'm playing an acoustic kit. That's one of the joys here. And we're obviously in the realm of top 40. We started all the major genres, all the major artists and all their influences, and then sort of try to bring something new to it, which is why we have this whole sort of organic vibe to it. I can sort of play the drums like I'm playing a real kit. I'm just not locked to single shot samples like we normally see with these sort of traditional production kits. And as you can see, these sounds are simple in their form. When you study top 40 deeply, you'll notice that the production is fairly simple, but the source of the ingredients is very, very good. So it's like sometimes if you want to make a really good pizza, for example, one of the common rules is just only use 5 ingredients and just make sure they're really high quality. You don't want to have too many layers. It confuses the taste, it confuses the ear, it confuses the popularity of music when it gets too complex. That's one of the sort of trade-offs with top 40. But the one thing we can do is to make it sound really, really cool. This one here is more of a sort of clean pop kit. Let me just trigger the ARP here. With all the programs, there's always something going on the pitch bender and always something going on the mod wheel as well. The pitch bender normally will go an octave up and octave down. That for me gives me a lot of sort of unique control where I can go like, or if you do like drops. You know the deal, the drop, the infinite drop. Let me show you some other programs here. This one is called Baby. This one has a cool sort of reverse effect in itself. If you notice here in the programs, there are 2 Justins. Who could it be? I'm taking one kit playing it straight and then the other one is reversing. And I'm also, if I believe I'm right here, using the offset here as well on part 2, where I can sort of set like, oh, I'm reversing the sound here, but I'm gonna go make it a little faster, a little shorter. You can go into the waveform that way. That's how we get that sort of reversed effect. I love this one here. It has a sort of a poch kind of sound to it. I like to sometimes try to phonetically spell the sounds I'm hearing. This for me is like a poch, poch. Maybe a prech, prach. And this one is kind of dirty when I have the mod wheel down here, almost like vintage. Let me try to remove the reverse here and just look at what's going on with the core sound here. A little bit of analog filter gets you right there. And then I'm also using the time module here. This is something I'm becoming more and more fascinated with inside of Soundpaint, that we can take sounds and we can stretch the time of them. Now, commonly that's used for sort of phrases where you want them to sync to your grid, but it's really interesting to do it on drums as well. For example, just a snare here. You'll notice the time right here is super, super tiny, very short. But as we stretch the time, you can hear that sort of sine wave underneath the snare. So all the sounds will become long, even this little sort of puck sound. All of a sudden is long. Like this sound here. You could almost take this one here and use single note stretch on it, in which case we get something like this. And because we have 127 velocity layers over every single key, we're taking not one sample, but 127 different samples, but now fully playable across the whole range here. Like down here. What's that? Almost like lock drums here. Like a tiny marimba of sorts. And now if I take the time here and make it short, we're down to this. This next one here is called breakbeat. And for me, I just have a thing about Chemical Brothers, that 90s sort of Matrix kind of style big beat. So this is a little bit of an homage to that. I hope it's gonna come back soon, top 40. It'll be the day top 40 mix. It's that kind of sound. Clean pop again here, just quickly. I mean, I just love that. We also have main kits here. Main kits are where we sort of remove all the effects, all the layers, the time stretching, the offset, everything we do to sort of manipulate the sounds. This is like the drums like they were truly intended at the core production state. And I want to say, often with top 40, we have to be very careful how much we apply effects, and when we do it the right way. A little bit of compression, a little bit of EQ, but it really doesn't have to be a lot. And these kits are really, really produced to sound like great out of the box. So often I just find myself coming back to these sort of main programs. This is really the true intention of the sound without all the additional color and magic. Now, it's quite common in top 40 that you have a tonal bass drum. You can hear a little bit of tonal quality in this bass drum here. But if I go up to the G on all the kits here, I get a more muted bass drum instead of. And often the tone is good, especially if it follows the pitch of the music. But sometimes you want a more clean sound. You don't even want the boom from the bass drum. You just want that short sort of. So on C's we got the tonal bass drums, and on G we have the non-tonal ones. And then on A you'll find a variation, often a percussion instrument. It can sometimes also be other snares, depending on how we fit that sort of together with the rest of the kit. But you'll find these super cool sort of percussive sounds down here. I mean, this one here. I just love the sound here. It's like the perfect, like it has very, very tight snare, but almost with some kind of like tambourine. It's a little bit of a rattle on top, but depending on how hard I hit the keys here, I get all the velocity morphing. So that whole sort of rattle doesn't really start before I hit the upper layers. And just to give you a demonstration of how it actually makes a difference having all these layers here, let me just go into the arp here and do hold. And one of the beautiful things with the arp is that I can just draw here just by holding my hand here. I don't have to click every single step. But just check how many variations you get, for example, of this sound here. My name is... I just love this kit here. It's so tight and it's a little more high-pitched. I tend to like that more for pop myself. I find there's less sort of bassy tonal elements and I can really have clarity in my beat. So sweet, super tight. So tight as well. And this one here, I wish I could just send it through the camera to you so you could feel this sort of sensation of playing the snare so fluently, just like it's a real deal. It's a little more noise when I hit it real hard, instead of this one here. Just a little extra on the end. Here's just a pop star. It's very simple, but it really sits cleanly in the mix. The hi-hat is not hard in the ear. The bass drum is just sitting in a nice frequency. It's not too tonal, so it's not interfering too much with elements here. The snare really sits in the pocket. If I don't want it as aggressive, I can tune it down here in the arp. Everything is fully controllable, just a joy. You notice that I often sometimes alternate between the D and the E. The D is the snare, the E is the clap, or clappy, snappy kind of sound. And when you sequence these guys here, don't ever quantize them straight on top of each other. Like, try to play them a little bit loosely, find your groove. It really depends on the style of music. Like, a lot of the older hip hop was very, very loose. So depending on how tight you want it, but don't ever make it too tight. Though pop is very much that, just with a little bit of like human inside of the production. Here's like the reversed. I love this one. Now, if you ever want to go like reversed, then you go into our sound mode here and you find the reverse icon here and they'll reverse the given part that you've loaded here. In this case, I have one that's not reversed in the beginning here and then one that's reversed down here. And if you look at the rack here, you'll notice that I'm also playing with the offset button here, particularly on part 2, I suspect, because you can manipulate when you want the reverse to start. This next one here is just an homage to an old school instrument, also known just as the vinyl record or being a scratcher. I remember I had a conversation with Dave Smith, the beautiful inventor of sequential and who I had the great joy of creating a couple of synthesizers with. On a couple of occasions over too much tequila, we would sometimes get into the debate of whether scratching or vinyl, you know, that kind of style, is actually an instrument or not. And I think over the years, both concluded that scratching is certainly an instrument. It might be more rhythmic than tonal. Anyway, I went back to this reverse function here, and then it occurred to me that if I did reverse the right way and I combine it with offset, I could kind of get like a scratching thing going on. You'll see what I mean. I mean, it's not totally like scratching, but you get the feel, like sort of. So if you ever need that to let out your own DJ, then we have it in there in some form. And that's a little bit about Soundpaint as well. Like, we like to have fun sometimes, not keep it too stiff. Here's one called Snappit. I was like, damn it, Snappit. And this is also a good sign of the fact that we're not just using single shot samples, but the fact that I can go with the same key here, like. You get that natural sort of organic analog variation, something we're really curious about exploring deeper and deeper in Soundpaint to make a true analog engine. In many ways also inspired what we did with Dave on the sequential. The first song ever made with synthesizers commercially, using one note stretch here just on one of those sort of pop sounds. Here's one called Tight Claps. And as I mentioned, I just love these super, super tight sounds. I wonder what happens if I play like a 7th, 8th group. You'll never find 7/8 in pop music, like, sadly. Let's time travel. Time is your friend, at least in Soundpaint. We can go into time. Like for the bass drums, for example. There's a lot hiding in that sound. It might sound like this, like very innocent. But we go into the DNA of the sound in Soundpaint. Oh, there's a little monster in there. Hidden in the bass is growling a little bit. Okay, snare. Oh, okay. Punchy. So monster bass drum, snare with a punch. Maybe a little too long. Let's try again. Anyway, production kits, 5 octaves worth, 5 different kits, all laid out just to have fun with pop production in particular. We have a variety of different artists, a variety of different genres that we're leaning into and lending from, but also trying to add something new to as well, especially going away from the, what I like to call the post-apocalypse. Soundpaint is the post-apocalyptic technology in the sense that, yeah, we can trigger single samples and all that, that's super easy, but why don't we do something new? Why don't we bring something new to the table? Why don't we try to advance the field of music a little bit? Let's take synthetic kits here, give them 127 layers and make them fully playable and have fun on the keys, you know? Would have thought that an arpeggiator could be such a cool drum machine as well. Well, it helps when you have all the velocities near infinite round robin. So, yeah.